Welcome to another Baby Brunch podcast. You actually asked us to talk about this sudden infant death syndrome. You know what? When I got to learn about cot death, I was terrified. I just explained to our two experts that if I was a new mom and I was faced with something like cot death, I would not have known what is happening to me or my little family. And so what we want to do with this podcast and this conversation and this video is to inform you about what it is, and always contact your healthcare professional. I don't like Googling things really. So find someone credible that you can speak to that can give you information about this. And thank you also for logging onto this platform to get information around sudden infant death syndrome, as well as loosely called cot death, which is a terrible, terrible term. Joining us today is Richard Powell. He specializes in the development of medical grade components for medical devices. And then Mark Irvine, he's in Cape Town. He's a general pediatrician in Cape Town. Now, just to give you an idea of how we found these experts, an amazing company in South Africa that makes a really high-tech baby monitor of some sort. They contacted me for a podcast, and I said to them, there's more to this. I need to know how you did your research. And so I want to thank the team. They actually put us in contact with our two experts today. So in our social media posts, you will find their details of how they've done their research and how they've tried to help many parents, not just in South Africa, but around the world. Do we put baby in on their side? Do you put them on their backs?
So there's very good evidence that the safest sleeping position is flat on your back. And I think all the Europeans have shown by running back to bed and safe sleep campaigns that you can lower the incidence of cot death by putting kids to sleep on their back without the possibility of blankets covering them, without cushions, etc. in the bed. So I think South Africa has got a long way to go to educate parents that sleeping on your back is twice as safe as sleeping on your tummy.
Richard, you're an engineer, surely. Yeah. I mean, what do you say?
Well, I totally agree with the sleeping methods. They've come out with a series of different recommendations for making it safer to sleep in the bed. And they came out with these recommendations back in the 1980s and 1990s and formalized them, I think, in the mid-1990s. The other thing is, we have these recommendations. And like with my daughter, when she had her baby, her daughter would not sleep on her back. She just absolutely would not sleep on her back. She would cry and cry and cry. So she had no option but to put her on her side or put her on her stomach. And then I think there's other times with mothers when, you're tired, you're fatigued, you have all sorts of problems and the baby's crying and, you just want to take it to bed with you and sleep and be peaceful. And so it's such a temptation for mothers to take the babies to bed with them, which is also very dangerous, to do that. But still, this is how it's been since time began with mothers, taking their babies to bed with them. And the death rate is there, but most babies survive. So the question is, what else can you do? And what I've been looking and researching is, well, why don't we monitor these children? I mean, if a baby stops breathing, don't you want to know that it stopped breathing? And so why not monitor the infant? And there's products out there that are coming out there on the market that will tell you if, one, the baby stopped breathing, or if he is becoming low on blood oxygen. There's two different types of approaches on whether you want to monitor the blood oxygen or whether you want to monitor the breathing. But in either case, if a critical situation comes out and you're a mom and you're scared and you're feared, don't you want to know if your baby has stopped breathing so you have an opportunity to try to revive that baby? And that's I think that's the big question that mothers have to ask for themselves is, do you want to be notified?
Mark, you wanted to add to that?
Everything has a plus and a minus. So you've got to be prepared to get out of bed when there's an alarm and put the light on and check that the baby's okay, and then go back to sleep. So everything is going to have false positives. And if you're going to use that technology, then you've got to be prepared to do that. And I think that's worth it for me.
It is, for me.
If the baby's small and at risk.
Does this give me time as a parent to jump up, resuscitate my kid, practice the first aid that I learned while I was pregnant,
One, I totally agree that the false alarms is one of the major disadvantages of monitoring, and it does cause a lot of stress, so it's just kind of a trade-off. And the other thing I wanted to comment about was your question about whether or not there's time to revive, because are these deaths instantaneous? It looks like to me, all the evidence points to the fact that these are not instantaneous deaths. In most cases, it appears, and these are from past studies, old studies. The number one study was this study called the CHIME study done back in the 1990s, where they had both pulse oximetry and cardiorespiratory monitoring on the infants. And they found that in most cases, when they had a critical life-threatening event like slow heart rate or low or stopping breathing, they found that they were hypoxic prior to these events, meaning that they had low blood oxygen preceded these life-threatening events.
Right. So they were
in a
sick
couple
already.
Studies.
They were okay.
And then the other thing is, if they do stop breathing, they've got about 10 minutes before they die. So if you can detect that they stop breathing, you've got 10 minutes to do something.
Mark, what would you like to end with? This has been probably one of our most insightful chats. I must tell you, I have goosebumps. Mark?
So all of those things are going to be useful. But the bottom line is, if it happens to you, it's a tragedy. And once more, I want to pick up the thing about blame. This is an unexpected thing that unfortunately happens to some parents. And I don't want those parents to come away thinking I did something wrong. Or whatever,
I want to thank both of you for your time. I think you have a really, really wonderful job to help so many people. Richard, thank you for your 40 years of research that you gave us in 5 minutes. We appreciate
Thank you for inviting me
so much, all the way from California. Richard L. Powell, if you want to follow him. And Mark Irvine, thank you so much for the work that you do as a pediatrician, but for parents, thank you for being calm and for giving us reassurance.